I'm super excited today to be joined by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Sir, great to be here with you. I want to jump right in and talk about the news that everyone is talking about, and that's redistricting. And I want to get your reaction to what happened in Texas yesterday first. Texas Republicans passed their gerrymandered maps, eliminating 5 Democratic held seats. You obviously want to be Speaker of the House next year. What's your reaction?
Well, we have to take back the majority for the good of America, and we're committed to making sure that that takes place. Donald Trump clearly is running scared because he has nothing positive to run on in terms of getting anything done to make life better or more affordable for the American people. That's the entire reason why Donald Trump and compliant Republicans are trying to gerrymander the congressional map, starting in Texas, in order to rig the midterm elections. Our view is that when they go low, we hit back hard. That's what's happening in California, and Democrats are going to respond from coast to coast and at all points in between.
Now, I want to ask you about California. But before I do, I mean, these are 5 Democratic seats held by members who are really hardworking members. These are good members. Do you envision, I mean, what do you envision them not running? Do you envision them retiring? I mean, what happens next there?
Well, the battle is just starting with respect to the Texas maps because to the extent they are signed into law by Governor Abbott, who's a fraud,
Hmm.
by the way, to the extent they are signed into law, we are prepared to sue immediately. It's our view that the gerrymandered Texas map racially disenfranchises millions of people in Black and Latino communities across Texas and is a clear violation of both the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution and Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. This is not the end in Texas. It's only the beginning. It's my expectation that certainly in the Rio Grande Valley,
Hmm.
both Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez are going to both run for reelection and win. Their districts have been made more difficult, and that was intentional because this is a partisan gerrymander engineered by extreme MAGA Republicans, but both are committed to running and winning. In terms of the other 3 seats
Hmm.
that were broken apart in urban areas of Texas around Austin, Houston, and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I think the members in those instances are still evaluating what the options are and trying to figure out how to proceed. At the moment, our commitment is to stand by each and every one of them and to continue to support the brave Texas House Democrats from the legislature who have taken extraordinary action both out of state and in state in order to push back against this gerrymandered map and raise awareness all across the country so that we, as Democrats and enlightened Americans, are prepared to respond.
You mentioned the legal challenges that are going to come. Are you at all worried? Because this Supreme Court, 6-3 conservative majority, and it's actually considering in Louisiana whether race-based districts are even constitutional this term. And many say, you know what, they may throw that out completely. So are you at all concerned with this Supreme Court?
There's real concern with respect to what some on this Supreme Court may be determined to do with respect to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And the Louisiana case is troublesome. And we know that you have extremists on the court led by Justice Alito and Justice Clarence Thomas, another complete fraud, who are determined to undermine the Voting Rights Act. The last time the Supreme Court took up the VRA matter in the Alabama court decision, there was a 5-4 majority for sustaining Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act in an instance where it was clear that the Republicans were gerrymandering a map to dilute the ability of African Americans, in that case in Alabama, to choose the candidate that they want to represent them in Congress. The same thing has traditionally gone on in Louisiana. And so to the extent that 5-4 majority remains consistent with its prior decision, then I think this notion that districts are being drawn to enable African Americans to elect the candidate of choice is somehow inconsistent with the Constitution or the Voting Rights Act is absurd.
Right. I want to pivot and talk about California. You said when they go low, we hit back. What's your response to folks who say, okay, California will do this, but then New York may do it, then Florida may do it, and then we turn into this kind of race to the bottom where everyone's gerrymandering and ultimately Americans don't have a choice or don't.
Well, we're not. It's a very important question, Aaron. I appreciate you asking. We're not engaging in partisan gerrymandering. We're responding in self-defense, so that overall throughout the country there is a fair map. Now, the Republicans are limited in the states that they can actually go into and engage in this type of partisan gerrymandering for a few reasons. First, they've already gerrymandered to the best of their ability in most of these states to begin with. And so they only have a few additional options left. And even in those states, particularly when it comes to places like Ohio and Florida, there are constraints that have been built into the Constitution. And Republicans, if they are held to the standards that the voters in those two states put into the Constitution, will be unable to further gerrymander the maps. That's something that we're prepared to litigate and fight in the court of public opinion. We're going to respond whenever and wherever we need to, just to make sure that overall there are fair maps across the country, and Republicans can't mathematically gerrymander their way into stealing the election in 2026. The American people are the ones who should be able to make the choice. And in the overwhelming majority of congressional districts across the country, that will be the case.
What about in New York, your home state? Governor Kathy Hochul yesterday tweeted out, quote, "game on," after Texas Republicans passed their maps. Would you support New York potentially amending the Constitution, getting rid of their independent redistricting commission, and kind of doing a mid-decade redistricting cycle?
Yeah, all options absolutely have to be on the table in every single state, including New York. And I support the legislation that has already been introduced to reevaluate the notion of this commission that has been put in place, operating under the assumption that everyone else across the country is operating by the same set of rules, when we know that is not the case. And we are in a 5-alarm fire right now, an unprecedented assault by Donald Trump and Republican extremists on the economy, on healthcare, on law-abiding immigrant communities, on the rule of law, on due process, on civil rights and voting rights, and on the American way of life. And so we've got to be able to respond in self-defense all across the country. That includes New York.
I do want to pivot and talk a little bit more about Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein files, because Congress is coming back into session in a couple of weeks. Recently, James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, and Robert Garcia, bipartisanship, they're working together to try to get these files for different reasons. What's the latest with the Epstein files? Do you anticipate the House getting them anytime soon?
House Democrats are going to continue to press the case. The American people deserve complete and full transparency with respect to the release of the Epstein files. That's just the circumstances that the Trump administration is not going to be able to run away from. And we will use every tool in the toolbox to force Republicans to get to a place where they either push the administration to release the Epstein files, or we pass legislation potentially connected to a motion to discharge and force Republican leadership to bend to the will of the majority of the House, which supports a release of the Epstein files.
Now, Congressman Comer said that they may get the files potentially as soon as tomorrow, or at least some files, the Oversight Committee. Have you spoken to Congressman Garcia on the Democratic side? Are you all prepared to potentially release some of these files to the public if you get them?
I have not spoken to Congressman Garcia in the last few days, but I have full and complete confidence in him, and he is one of the leaders of this effort, along, of course, with Ro Khanna, Jamie Raskin, the lead Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, Joe Neguse, the assistant Democratic leader, and several others. We're all working closely together to make sure that the American people can get access to this information. And wherever it leads, it leads. The core question is, what is Donald Trump and his sycophants within the administration hiding from the American people. They promised year after year that they were going to release these files if they were to come back into power. Well, they're in office right now. Release the files. What are you hiding from the American people? We are in a position where we just believe that Americans deserve the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I mean, it's not that complicated at this point. Release the files.
Yeah, I tend to agree. One more question on this. If House Democrats take back the majority in 2026, would you support a hearing where, because this is not just about Trump, it's about the survivors and the victims of Epstein's horrific crimes. Would you support a hearing where we can highlight the voices of victims and survivors from Epstein and Maxwell's crimes?
Absolutely. But we are in the process of making sure that sooner rather than later, either because our Republican colleagues agree for the Oversight Committee or the Judiciary Committee to convene a hearing, or as Democrats, we need to convene a Democratic-led hearing on Capitol Hill or throughout the country. We plan to do just that.
One final question for you. I don't know if you saw in Playbook today, in Politico's Playbook, they said that Republicans are having a tough time communicating to the country, to their constituents about their budget bill. What's your reaction to that? I mean, this is a budget bill that narrowly passed in the House of Representatives. It was a bipartisan vote against the budget bill. Why do you think Republicans can't effectively communicate it with their constituents?
The one big ugly bill hurts everyday Americans and rewards their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks that simply continue to build out a country of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires. The American people are rejecting that. They are rejecting the fact that Republicans are ripping health care away from millions of Americans. They are rejecting the fact that hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, and community-based health clinics are not going to be able to operate because of this one big ugly bill. The American people are rejecting the fact that premiums, co-pays, deductibles, and prescription drug prices for people who are on private insurance are going to go up and skyrocket across the country because of what Republicans have done in terms of this one big ugly bill. They are certainly rejecting the fact that Republicans are actually ripping food from the mouths of children and seniors and hungry veterans as part of this toxic scheme to reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. There's nothing that Republicans can do to convince the American people otherwise, and that is why they've been struggling throughout the month. There's been real Democratic unity across the country. Every single one of us in the House and in the Senate voted against this one big ugly bill, spoke forcefully on the floor in connection with this one big ugly bill, conducted a significant pushback effort in committee after committee after committee against this one big ugly bill. And as a result of these extraordinary efforts by Democrats and our allies, organized labor advocacy groups and others all across the country, including those who are pushing back aggressively against the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, the facts are actually being seen clearly by the American people, and the Republicans are in deep trouble.
Well, we'll see what happens next. Leader Jeffries, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Aaron.
Hey folks, Aaron Parnas here. Thank you so much for watching The Parnas Perspective. Please consider subscribing to support our work as we grow this independent news media entity into something that rivals mainstream every single day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.